can't kill Nintendo. Nintendo will live on. Sega tried to kill Nintendo, but they failed as they were BTF. Oh. Sony tried to kill Nintendo, but they failed as the low times were a bunch of crap. Xbox tried to kill Nintendo. They failed as they had no Japan sales.
Tango Gameworks no longer exists. This is something that really needs to be brought up after I, the only person in the world who called them out on the shilling campaign for Hi-Fi Rush in early 2023, this needs to be addressed. That I was completely 100% right on that, right? Hi-Fi Rush was not some monumental success. Tango Gameworks did not put out some absolute banger that led to Microsoft investing in the studio. No. What happened is that the game didn't do all that well in spite of the huge push for it, and so Microsoft shut the entire thing down. Oof. Embarrassing. Talk about pathetic. And this is well deserved. This is no great loss of the gaming industry. Tango Gameworks has contributed absolutely nothing to the gaming sphere since its inception. But yeah, a lot of people really did try to trick themselves into thinking that Hi-Fi Rush was some big, spectacular thing. This really impressive, amazing, monumental, just original video game release from Tango Gameworks. But, it's worse than Platinum games that we were getting 10 years ago, right? It's worse than Capcom games we were getting 20 years ago, right? I wouldn't even put Hi-Fi Rush on the same level of quality as a lot of the really good indie games that we've been getting lately. Stuff like Hollow Knight, stuff like Sifu, right? What exactly did Hi-Fi Rush do that led to it being so hyped and so praised, right? It was just heavily marketed, right? That's all it comes down to. That's all that it means. That's all that matters, right? Is that Hi-Fi Rush was hyped up because developers absolutely had nothing else to going for it, right? They had to shill for Hi-Fi Rush. They had to shill for Baldur's Gate 3. They had to shill for Street Fighter 6, for Final Fantasy 16, for it was a bad year for PlayStation and Xbox, right? 2023 is the year that the consoles really should have been in their absolute high point. But no, they put out all these massive games expecting them to be major phenomenal hits, but instead what we got was flop after flop after flop after flop after flop. And Hi-Fi Rush is interesting because we were assured by the gaming media, by Microsoft, by Tango Gameworks themselves, oh no, Hi-Fi Rush was a huge success. It did really well on Game Pass. It made us a lot of money, right? A lot of people are thrilled about Hi-Fi Rush, right? Microsoft is investing more money into Tango Gameworks. We're gonna expand. We're gonna start putting out new projects. That was what we were told after after the game came out, right? For an entire year, people believed that. And only I, Harmon Smith, the most high IQ, observant, just brilliant mind in the gaming sphere. Only I was able to come out, make a YouTube vlog, in extremely low quality, that Hi-Fi Rush's alleged success was completely fake. I was the only person to come out and say this was an astroturfing campaign. And people at the time, people were calling me a conspiracy theorist, right? Oh, astroturfing, he's just making it up. But it does feel as if these kind of practices are becoming more and more widely known. Similar to the DEI practices and the Sweet Baby thing. the astroturfing thing is becoming more widely known. Like the people that are talking about bad games on social media, stuff like No Man's Sky, stuff like Starfield, stuff like Baldur's Gate 3, like it is completely fake, right? There aren't that many players for these fringe, niche, low budget games that didn't do all that well financially or critically, right? Hi-Fi Rush is barely even a year old, right? It's a year and a half old now, and it's already been completely forgotten. If it wasn't for the bankruptcy of Tango Gameworks, the game would not be talked about at all, right? If it wasn't for the shutdown of the studio, I said bankruptcy, but it's actually being shut down. If it wasn't for the studio being shut down, nobody would be talking about Hi-Fi Rush at all, right? And I tried to warn you. I tried to show you the writing on the wall. I tried to explain to you what really happened, but did my warnings go heated? Did anybody listen to Harmon Smith? No. Again. And it's I don't feel vindicated. I feel like upset, because like this really shouldn't have happened. Okay. Like Hi-Fi Rush was one of the most embarrassing things to happen in 2023, right up there with like Baldur's Gate 3 and just everything that happened at the Game Awards, right? Like, Hi-Fi Rush was very, very frustrating to me. But like now it seems like we're at the point now where people are beginning to notice the patterns, right? People are beginning to notice that like there's something up with these releases, and people aren't necessarily buying into them like they used to, right? Like it's kind of crazy seeing like what happened with Power World, where it was in a lot of ways worse than Hi-Fi Rush, but it was here and gone like way quicker. Like Power World was only relevant for 2 weeks, right? Hi-Fi Rush was like relevant for what, like a month maybe. So we went from a flavor of the month game to like flavor of 2 weeks, right? And now, in mid 2024, right? Like it feels like it's going to get even worse. That games like this are going to come and go even quicker, right? And it really needs to be said that like even the very best PlayStation, Xbox, and PC games cannot compete with Nintendo products, right? Hi-Fi Rush is a very good example of just how this mid IP was hyped up as some like deviation from Microsoft's typical outfit. Like, oh, look at how colorful it is. It's like a Saturday morning cartoon. Like, where were you when Nintendo put out Mario Wonder or ARMS or The Wonderful 101, right? The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, Fire Emblem Engage, Advance Wars 1 and 2 remake. Like, where were you for that? Like, again, I really do need to address this whenever people talk about, like, how there's nothing to play or there's nothing to talk about. Like, why are you not talking about or playing the Nintendo games, right? That you are actively ignoring, right? Um, we're gonna have to see just how things escalate from here, right? But it does feel like uh meme games like Power World, like Hi-Fi Rush, like it's becoming more and more obvious that this stuff is not here to stay. Like they really tried to convince themselves that like Power World was bigger than Pokemon when it first came out. Like the merchandise was doing really well. That that like, oh, it sold 27 million units on Steam. It's outsold all the Pokemon games. Like it was always a cope, right? It was just straight up delusional. But they were putting out that content, right? They were trying to shit on Pokemon fans, and what happened? Like Power World's instantly forgotten about. We haven't even gotten a new Pokemon game yet since Power World came out, and yet it's already been forgotten. That's how like irrelevant it was. And yeah, Hi-Fi Rush is a really good alternate example. Like I I just I am really tired of people hyping up and promoting these mid video games, trying desperately to keep attention and praise away from Nintendo, their consoles, and their games.